Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Establish Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through tonight's 4-game slate. A little bit of injury information to talk about, not quite as much as yesterday's big slate. Mike, how are you on this fine Thursday?
Doing good, yeah. Listen to all my pressers. It's looking good for tomorrow. Big slate tomorrow. Yeah, only 2 questionable tags today. But yeah, a lot of stuff. That's not noted on the injury report that I want to talk about. So definitely some value that I think we could help you guys with.
All right, let's get to it. The questionable tags. Let's start with Jalen Suggs, questionable. Bull, and Mo Wagner have been ruled out for the Magic. Mo Wagner is the last suspension that they have to serve, which will be tonight, and then they'll be clear of that. Bull's health and safety protocols stuff. What is your read on Jalen Suggs' expectation, and how, if he does return, how would that impact Orlando's rotation tonight?
Yeah, pretty much every indication we have from Jamal Mosley is that Cole Anthony is going to be back today, which
Jalen
obviously
Suggs.
I'm sorry, yeah, Jalen Suggs, my bad. Cole Anthony will also be back, returned from suspension last game. But yeah, so I think he's going to be on the wing, which we'll see how that affects. I think Terrence Ross is probably going bye-bye. We saw him come off the bench the last game, start 2 games ago. They seem to like Gary Harris for their on-ball defense. I think we've seen a kind of a pattern besides Markelle Fultz, but this Wendell Carter Jr. thing, bringing guys off the bench, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I think they'll kind of slot him in behind Gary Harris to be kind of their main on-ball defense guys. We saw Gary Harris play pretty good defense yesterday, picked up a lot of Shea assignment. Yeah, so I would expect probably Ross to go away entirely. Caleb Houston was pretty good yesterday. Hit a couple big shots. I thought his defense was solid. But I don't think this is going to affect Fultz and Cole Anthony. This time I'm saying the right name in Cole Anthony. Well, I don't think they'll be affected that much.
So it sounds like the rotation expectation you have would be Fultz starting point guard, Cole Anthony backup point guard, Gary Harris starting shooting guard, Jalen Suggs backup shooting guard, Franz Wagner starting small forward, and then backup small forward would essentially be Paolo. Like, you thinking 9-man rotation, or who do you think slides in there?
I think it'd probably be 9.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, I think that's probably about right.
And so then that would be essentially Paolo maybe as a backup 3, stealing some minutes there. Caleb Houston as a backup 4 behind Paolo. And then Wendell Carter Jr. and Mo Bamba is sort of the expectation there. If they did have 10, I assume Terrence Ross would still be the 10th. It's a little bit small playing Terrence Ross as a 3 next to Suggs. And a little bit of some defensive concerns there, but he would probably be most likely to be a 10th man. Is that your read as well?
I think so. Yeah, I think that they like Houston and they want to give him minutes. We've seen Ross not be in the rotation prior to the suspension stuff and injuries and all that. So I think that's probably the way they're going to go.
Okay,
but he might pick up a couple minutes here and there. But yeah.
Let's move to the Clippers stuff. They're on the front end of a back-to-back tonight. Paul George is listed as questionable. Kawhi is not on the injury report. Brandon Boston is available, which we should note. And Nick Batum has been ruled out and sounds unlikely to play tomorrow as well. What's your read on how the Clippers are going to handle these back-to-backs? Usually Kawhi doesn't play back-to-backs. So with Paul George it would seem likely that Paul George sits tonight, plays tomorrow. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, there is a lot of evidence here to suggest Paul George is not playing. Number one, this is a re-aggravation. He pulled his right hamstring on November 19th or something, and he missed 2 weeks. Number two, Ty Lue said that they're going to look to play Robert Covington while Kawhi and Paul George miss time, which would you believe they're not expecting him to play. Number three, John Wall and Kawhi are both not on the injury report today, which leads you to believe that both, or most likely both, are going to sit out tomorrow. That way, because they know they're not going to have Paul George today. Number four, there was video of Paul George going through the training staff, not even doing like straight line running, doing side to side stuff, things that don't really activate your hamstring. Pretty clear indication they don't want his hamstrings to be overly activated after he aggravated it. You do not want to pull your hamstring. We saw this Paul George last year. It kept aggravating the injuries and it derailed his whole season. I would be shocked if Paul George played today. So that means, maybe we see Kennard. I wouldn't be surprised. They like Norm Powell off the bench for additional ball handling to help out Wall. Lou seems to like that. He said he will actually look at rearranging the rotations today, so we could see something brand new. Whether that's Amir Coffey but he seemed like pretty sold. He needed to change some things. He said he wanted to keep Zubac's minutes down. He said he kind of can't right now without Batum there. So yeah, Ty Lue and in-game adjustments are going to be rampant tonight. But I would be really, really shocked if Paul George is out there today.
Also, a lot of commentary on needing to get Robert Covington some minutes and opportunities. So that's another, another point of evidence that suggests Paul George might not be available tonight is pointing to Robert Covington needing to get some opportunities and that he would in the next 2 games was sort of the commentary from Lou. So yeah, we could see some really mixed up rotations here. John Wall's also looked terrible. He's really, really struggled of late. So I think there's a lot of vulnerabilities here. I think the guys that are going to be the most safe in terms of their roles are obviously Kawhi, Marcus Morris. I think Reggie Jackson's role is pretty safe with how terrible John Wall's looked of late. And then Zubac's, although Zubac's, they're saying that they don't want to play him this much, but they can't not. So I think his role is pretty safe. And I think Norm Powell's role is safe. And then the other 4 or 5 guys we're going to see, I think it's highly variable. Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard, Robert Covington. If we see Amir Coffey, I think all of those roles would be highly variable and relative to game flow tonight would be my
just to hit Zubats really quick too. They play the Wolves tomorrow. We know Ty Lue loves to play small against Rudy Gobert. We saw them play ultra small. Terrence Mann at the 5. I think PJ at the 4 with Norm Powell, Wall, and somebody else who's really small. So I wouldn't be surprised if he plays a ton against Joker, and then they really dial him back tomorrow.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. Let's move to the doubtful and out tags. Memphis on the second night of back-to-back here. No Desmond Bane, no Brandon Clark. Kennedy Chandler back with the team. Tyus Jones, there was a lot of interesting injury reporting yesterday with all these questionable tags on Memphis in the sense that Zaire Williams and I'm forgetting who the other questionable tag that wasn't Tyus. Zaire Williams and someone else that was questionable both got ruled in. Santi Aldama, that's who it was. Both got ruled in, and then there was no reporting on Tyus Jones. And earlier in the day, there had been a report that Kennedy Chandler was called up and with the club. Tyus Jones ends up getting ruled in later, and the game ends up getting out of hand, and they're able to manage everybody's minutes. It's not really that big of a deal. But I thought it was noteworthy that the way that all played out in second night of back-to-back here, Tyus Jones not on the injury report. So just a little bit strange there, but no Desmond Bane tonight. How do you see Memphis lining up without him?
Yes, just to line that up, how this worked. We've seen Memphis continuously list guys doubtful the game before they're expecting them to return. That's what happened with Santi. That's what happened with Zaire. So they were clearly planning them to play. So they were ready for them to go. I thought they were going to give them the green light regardless. But Tyus was ill, so they didn't really know if he was going to play. They didn't have enough information to rule him in early at the time. So I think that certainly makes sense. No Bane, certainly John Contrast season. We've seen him fill in pretty well. Some commentary from Jenkins last week talking about him readjusting and recalibrating was the term. So curious to see if things change there. We saw Kennedy Chandler pick up a decent amount of minutes over the weekend, even as like a wing and an on-ball defender. Not a spot where you need on-ball defense against the Magic, so I don't think they would go there as much as we saw on Sunday. But pretty straightforward. We've seen a pretty good amount of no Bane and no minutes. John Moran didn't play in the 4th. They didn't have to up any of these guys' minutes because they just completely waxed the Hornets yesterday.
Okay. Dallas, still no Dorian Finney-Smith. Josh Green still out. We've seen kind of Dallas play without these guys for almost 2 weeks now. Any news or information you want to add on the Dallas situation tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that Dorian Finney-Smith's not close. He's not doing anything right now. They don't really have a timetable for him. He's been really impactful. Their defense has been a little spotty. So I think that Boston, we'll see that their defense can't get any worse. But let's see if their offense can get it going here. Not having a lot of wing defense, I think, gives Boston a pretty nice edge on their offensive side.
These two teams have not been playing I know Dallas is like 1-7 in a row. Dallas is not playing well. Like Luka, it's just Luka's playing well and Christian Wood's playing well. Nobody else is really playing that well. Boston's been playing poorly. So as much as the MVP narrative in battle is tonight, I'm interested to see if Boston can kind of right the ship tonight. I think they do. I think they come out and play well tonight. No Colin Sexton for Utah still. How does that impact things in a favorable matchup here against the Rockets?
Yeah, so we saw. I'm expecting a rotation change here, and it's off of Will Hardy's comments. It's O'Shea Akbaji. I think is going to be in the rotation. Hardy said, "quote It's time to play Akbaji." So that could cut into someone like maybe Nikhil Alexander-Walker. They obviously got you know Malik Beasley, and they've got enough ball handling with Clarkson and Mike Conley. So I won't be surprised if any of these guys lose minutes to Akbaji here. They're losing games. I think that they're ready to let this guy go. So obviously he's not really fantasy relevant, but taking upside off of even the starters or anybody else is certainly noteworthy for DFS and other stuff. But yeah, pretty straightforward here. But I would keep an eye on Nikhil Alexander-Walker. I don't think he's as viable if they are going to bring Akbaji into the rotation.
Robert Williams for Boston, going back to that Dallas and Boston game. He's listed as probable, so we're expecting his return last night after missing the game against Oklahoma City. Maybe a coincidence, maybe not. They gave up 150 points to Oklahoma City. Al Horford was terrible in that game. Time Lord is back in a pretty favorable matchup against Dallas. We've seen centers do well against Dallas tonight. What's your expectation for Robert Williams' role in his return tonight?
Yeah, it should be back to normal. We'll see if this obviously he'll take Blake Griffin out, or Luke Cornett was actually, I believe, ahead of Blake Griffin. Blake got in there late. But yeah, a little bit more minutes upside coming off of Derek White and Sam Hauser and those guys. They'll probably play a little bit bigger. Still waiting for the starting lineup to go, right? We saw this lineup just roll through teams from January on last year with Time Lord and Horford together. We haven't really seen it as a starting unit. So I wonder after this embarrassing loss that they maybe go that way here. Not exactly, and it's not a bad matchup to do it. You're asking a lot out of Marcus Smart to pick up the Luka assignment, but you've got a lot of help and size to offset some of that, with especially Time Lord maybe closing out on some of the stuff they're going to run weak side.
All right, and then other notes, you have Nuggets a little bit banged up. Christian Brown not in the rotation now. What are your thoughts on the Nuggets that you want to share with the people?
I just wanted to note that they have a back-to-back, and according to Mike Malone, Aaron Gordon's shoulder is okay, not great was the language he used. So keep an eye out on him. Probably tomorrow. I think he's going to play today, but possible maintenance situation. He said like Jokic is banged up. Talking about another thing I wanted to note is rotation change. We're seeing a little bit more of overlap of Bones Highland and Jamal Murray, which is very interesting from a defensive standpoint and from an offensive standpoint. So we could talk more about that on the DFS show. But Mike Malone's kind of juggling some things against a Clippers team where you want to have more diversity to your offense. So I won't be surprised if Bones kind of gets up there a little bit coming off of a bad loss against the Wolves.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, obviously, if Paul George is unavailable and it's just one wing that you need to defend. It's a little bit different than if you have two. I think if Paul George was playing and Kawhi was playing, I think this would maybe be a tougher game for Bones' minute ceiling to get up there, because you might need Christian Brown a little bit more from a defensive standpoint. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That game against Minnesota, they were trailing the whole time, and when they play from behind, they play Bones more because they know they need the offensive firepower. When they play from ahead, sometimes they lean into the defensive guys a little bit more. So something to lean on there. And then the Rockets on the second night of back-to-back. Eric Gordon hasn't played a lot of these back-to-backs, so we'd assume he probably isn't going to go, although they haven't filed yet. Any other thoughts on Houston tonight?
Yeah, pretty much no chance Eric Gordon's going to play. I haven't seen him play back-to-back, so that would mean KJ Martin slides into the starting lineup. And yeah, pretty embarrassing. They actually made a late run in the fourth to give a little bit of sweat on a Trey Murphy under, because they were up by like 30 for most of this game. But yeah, should be pretty straightforward. KJ in the lineup, maybe a little bit more Tari Eason. We should see. I didn't have any post-game comments because Silas got ejected, but yeah, should be pretty straightforward and great matchup. I know we love to play against this Utah defense, and this Rockets defense is really bad. So we'll definitely be talking about that a lot on the DFS show later today.
Yep. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Establish Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. As always, support the people who are supporting us. The show is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They have daily NBA snake drafts for money, running in addition to many formats of NFL contests still running for huge cash prizes, including those very fun playoff contests. Another mitten was released today. If you're playing NBA Pick'em, in-season subscribers can use our tool to compare ETR projections to their game. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, use promo code ETR for a matching deposit bonus up to $100. It's promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. As Mike noted, it will be myself and Mike Gallagher behind the paywall today at 5 o'clock Eastern, walking through this 4-game slate from a DFS perspective. So join us there if you have a subscription. If you are uninterested in giving us your hard-earned dollars, as always, we ask for your hard-earned clicks. So consider subscribing to this YouTube page, get notifications whenever we go live, and smash that like button to help circulate our content and feed that algorithm. So we always say, you feed the algorithm, helps us feed our families, and helps us feed you the DFS and props related injury information. So that'll do it for today's edition. We'll be back tomorrow with Justin Fan and Mike Gallagher for a big double-digit game slate once again. Take care, everybody.